250,000 people are, they may or may not be relevant.
Is brand awareness. So one, if the customer doesn't know you exist, how can they buy from you? So it's
Patric Ronnie.
Well, this is Marketing Mondays 92. We apologize.
Hey, we're close to 100. We're getting close to 100.
We are. We apologize for missing last week. We had some scheduling stuff, weekly meetings and stuff got bounced around. So we apologize for missing last week, but we wanted to make sure that we continued on the conversation that we kind of had rolling while we were talking about keyword research, just because I think it's kind of goes together. It's obviously something that we're going to talk about here and show in a little bit as far as what you can kind of get into within Google AdWords and whatnot. But any case, how have you been, Patrick? I apologize for going on.
No, I've been fine, man. It's been great. I like I said, missing last week was kind of a bummer, but definitely looking forward to getting back into it. Obviously, the topic that we're going to touch on today, it's like peeling back the layers of an onion. I mean, we're just going to be able to scratch the surface of what there is today, but hopefully we can provide some really good information to people about AdWords and the way they could use the keywords that they pulled up in keyword research to make their AdWords run a little bit better. So I'm always excited on stuff like this because it's again, a lot of people get into AdWords and they do it either a smart campaign or something like that, and they end up spending a lot of money and not getting a lot of results. And a lot of that comes down to being in the nitty gritty, if you will, with how to set these things up properly. So that's what I like about what we're going to talk about today, because it really gets into a little bit of the entry level of what it takes to properly set up a Google AdWords campaign versus just doing a smart campaign. And it'll allow you to get a lot better results for the same amount of money.
Yeah. So we'll back up a little bit and kind of, when somebody says Google AdWords, if you're a business owner or somebody and you've never heard that term, what is Google AdWords? How do I know what this is and kind of describe what it does?
Great question. Well, obviously a lot of people refer to it as AdWords, Google AdWords. Some people call it pay-per-click. If you've heard that term before, what essentially it is you're paying money to when people search for certain things on, in this case, we're going to talk about Google. When people search for certain keywords or key phrases on Google, you're spending money so that you could come up at the top of those search results, and typically a sponsored ad. You've probably seen those yourself when you're looking. They will look like a regular Google search result, but they will say sponsored above them. And it gives you an ability to, there's a lot of things you can do with that now. You could even do sponsored ads in the map pack. You could do sponsored ads in the organic listings, and it allows you to have text. It allows you to have pictures. It allows you to have videos, all those different things for a Google search campaign. The idea is if somebody's searching for a product/service that matches your keywords or key phrases, that you want to make sure that you're coming up at the top of that list or close to the top of that list. And if your SEO isn't generating top of the list rankings yet, then this is a way to get up there while you're waiting for those organic results to happen, or even give yourself 2 listings at the top of the page instead of 1. Give yourself twice the chance of landing the click. So that's in a brief over. So you're basically talking about paying for search result.
I think, and I'll give you time to kind of, I don't see your screen up here, but it's something we can kind of get into in a little bit. So essentially with the Google AdWords, you're able to kind of pick certain keywords that are kind of within your industry, your market, your product or service. And so then hopefully people that kind of click or kind of type in that particular search, your stuff kind of shows up. So this is the back end of Google AdWords.
You could add whenever you're ready. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, you're good. I think it's perfectly good time to start. So this is kind of your generic background. I'll let you kind of break down how this is, but this is essentially the dashboard if you were to start a Google AdWords campaign.
Sure. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of walk you through some of the basics back here, because again, a lot of people have used smart campaigns and things like that. So they really haven't seen a backdrop like this. So hopefully this is going to be helpful just looking it over. This is a client of ours, but they're outside the industry. I don't think they would mind me sharing some different things. So I'll just give you an idea, a basic look around. This is the results that they're getting for the last 20 or last 30 days. We have it pulled up. We have it right now comparing it to the prior 30 days. So you could expand these down here to show clicks, impressions, cost, things like that. We'll just spread out a couple of them. So you'll see like the impressions, the 30 days prior to these 30 days. The total was 20,000. Now they're at 21,927. So a 9.5% increase in impressions. Clicks were 579, and now they're 695. So a 20% increase in clicks. And the cost went from 309 to 304. So they actually had almost a 2% decrease in cost and a 20% increase in clicks. So this is an ad campaign that's working pretty well. The other thing is the CTR stands for click-through rate. That means of people that saw your ad, how many out of 100, how many of those people clicked on your ad? Like, was your text compelling? Was your ad written in such a way that people would want to click? The higher the click-through rate, or the CTR, the better. It means the more people that saw your ad as a percentage clicked on your ad. This particular campaign went from 2.89 to 3.17. So again, it's moving in the positive direction. More people are clicking through. The average cost is right here. The average cost per click went from 0.53 or 53 cents a click to 44 cents, so an 18% reduction in cost per click. So this is a view of a campaign we're running for a client, not a very high budget campaign, but just showing, the way we would look at it to track whether a campaign is being successful or not. And, what you would want to look for, some of the metrics you would want to look for to see if a campaign's headed in the right direction or not. Again, we're just scratching the surface. The other thing that we wanted to talk about was keywords. And, jump in anytime if you have supplemental questions, Aaron, because I don't want to
no, to me, it was one of those things. All this more or less, I should hope, makes sense to most people. I think aside from, I was just going to mention budget, but we can come back to that. I think going into the keywords, just because you had mentioned the cents, I think that might be something like if 53 cents for my ad to get kind of put up. I understand you were saying like out of 100, there's like three or four people might have clicked on your ad.
Which again, the higher that percentage, the better. So if you were at a 9% click-through rate, that would mean 9 out of 100. Just so that very rarely are you going to get into the double digits on that number, just because that's just not the way it typically. So that's going to even count when your ads are showing up for certain keywords, maybe further down on page 1. So technically they consider that an impression, but if somebody didn't click on your ad, it would it would count against you on the click-through rate. So again, your goal is to always continue to increase the number of clicks, increase the number of impressions. But as you increase the number of impressions, it could actually have a negative impact on the click-through rate. Does that make sense? We have more impressions, more clicks, and our click-through rate went up, which is good, but it didn't go up massively because our impressions increased as well. So all that being said, and I'm trying to click so that I could talk. So keywords is a big part of it. Like this particular client is in a very niche industry, so there's not a lot of overlay in keywords. You really want to grab any keywords you can that are related to their industry. So we're using what's called broad match keywords. And what that means is anybody that searches for anything that's similar to this, no matter what order the words are in or anything like that, no matter what order, it's going to try to find some association, and you're going to it's going to present your ad for that search. So if you're in a very particular industry where there's not a lot of overlap with other industries, and the nomenclature and the terminology is such that you can really go broad match because you don't have to worry about coming up for a lot of things that don't make sense, then it makes sense. There's also two other types of keywords you can add. One is called phrase match, which you could set that up in here. So instead of broad match, you could select exact match or phrase match, just so that we could talk about the three of those things. I want to see if I could put the exact match is much the way you would expect it. It's exact. So somebody would have to type in the exact wording and the exact order that you typed in order to come up for that. That's an exact match of your keyword. So any variation of that deviated from the way you set it up, you wouldn't come up for. Phrase match is kind of halfway in between broad match and exact match, in the fact that it's taking the keyword or the key phrase in context and trying to match you up with people that they're saying is going to be the type of match you're looking for. Might not be an exact match, but it's close enough that they're going to serve you up. So if you think about it, broad match is going to be the widest. It's going to try to grab as many people as you can. The net is as big as it can be. Phrase match is a little bit tighter net. You're going to probably lose a couple of those impressions, but you're going to have hopefully a better quality of impressions. An exact match means you're going to have an even smaller net still, but the people that are in that net are people that have searched for exactly what you added as keywords. So again, a lot of people aren't aware that there's three different types of keywords that you can use, and they make a big difference on how often your ad is shown and what ads that you're shown. And I could show you a couple other things in a second to give you an indication on whether your ads are being shown to the right people or not. So does that make sense? Do you have any questions with regard to that?
As far as what I was going to ask, is there a price difference, or how does that price break down? If I'm putting in X amount of money in, is one of these going to kind of take more of that money away, or is it kind of, you can spread this out? How is what I'm paying being affected by the different broad search freight? Like, how does that budgeting go into effect?
That's really not a factor of the keywords as much as it is you could set up the maximum amount you want to spend per click. So there may be a competitor that's using exact match or phrase match and then saying, if it's an exact match, I'm willing to pay a lot more money for that click because this is exactly what I'm looking for. Does that make sense? Versus a broad match. So they may have their settings such that they're willing to really pay a decent amount of money for a click because it's an exact match of what they're looking for. Where a broad match, you might have your maximum bid at a lower rate because you might be showing your ads to people that are on the periphery of what is relevant or not. So what I think you would find is as you're bidding on exact match, you would tend to pay more money per click, but not because you're paying more for the exact match, but because you might be running into competitors that are willing to spend more money for an exact match that you're now competing with that. Does that kind of make sense there?
Yeah, I guess.
From Google's perspective, it doesn't cost more to have an exact match. It's
more on that. And you can get into this if you were about to, of as far as like the bidding and being able to adjust that amount for certain things.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
So
again, we're in some pretty deep waters. So depending on how much we can get into for half an hour, we'll get into as much as we can. But there's a lot of, as you can tell by the way that this is set up, there's a lot of different settings and there's a lot of different things you can look for. One of the things I want to talk about right now, though, is, okay, you've set up your keywords. Now you actually want to figure out what are your ads showing for? Like the people that are clicking on your ads, what did they search for that your ad showed up for that they clicked on? The way you find that out is you go to this insight and report, and you go to search terms. And what this is going to show me in the last 30 days, everything that my ads showed up for. Now, this company's name is this, so that's an exact match, as you can see. And that was of the clicks they got, of the 384 clicks, that was 65 of those clicks, which, again, if somebody searches for your company by name, you would definitely want to show up high there. But these are the other keywords they showed up for. Now, this is where you would want to look at this to see, are there things on this list that aren't relevant? Now, in this particular situation, because this is such a niche industry, we're probably not going to see any that don't apply. But in another industry, you may see, well, here's one. I just saw one. Cleaning DPF filter at home. Well, this is a company that actually sells DPF cleaning equipment. So this isn't, they don't want to really come up for somebody. This is somebody that they do DPF cleaning, but this is somebody that wants to do a DIY type of thing. Or how do I clean DPF filter myself? Neither one of those are relevant, because even though it's got the word DPF filter and cleaning, they're looking, those two searches are looking to do it themselves. Well, we don't want to come up for those type of searches. So if you click on those search terms that aren't relevant, you can add those as a negative keyword. And when it comes up, you would go to save. And what that says now is that those two keywords are now listed as negative keywords. So if somebody searches for that again, we're not going to show our ads for that, because those aren't, even though there's similarities to what we're trying to come up for, those aren't AdWords, or those aren't keywords we want to come up for, because those people are really looking for a DIY solution, and we're trying to sell an actual, corporate solution or an actual equipment solution. So every time you set up your keywords, and then part of maintaining AdWords, and for some of our clients, we're doing this every single day or every single week. You're going in to these search terms and you're constantly monitoring what their ads are showing for, and you're weeding it like a garden and saying, that's not a relevant keyword, that's not a relevant keyword. And you add those things to the negative keywords, as well as maybe adding some keywords in where you think that there's a hole. Like we do a lot of work with window tinting shops. A couple of years ago, a keyword that started to become popular would be like Tesla window tinting. So we would go in and actually add the keyword Tesla window tinting, because that was what people were actually searching for. So, so the negative keywords, you could also set those up. I'm going to jump back over so I can show you. If you look where your keywords are at, you'll see that there's a thing that says negative keywords. And this is a list. Right now they've got 20. This is a list, and you see I just did these two. These are two that I just sent over to the negative keywords. But you'll see the negative keywords are things like DIY, delete, which in this industry, a lot of people try to delete the filter that we're talking about. So we don't want to come up for that. We don't want to come up for how to. Again, we're trying to come up for things that are relevant. So where you would add negative keywords would be things like in the window film industry, which is where a lot of the people that we work with are. You would want to have things like how to in a negative keyword, DIY, do it yourself, rolls, because people typically, if they're looking to get cars tinted, aren't searching for window tint rolls. If they're searching for window tint rolls, they're probably looking to either do it yourself or whatever. So you would set up things in the negative keywords, also things like tools, also things like training. So if people type in window tint training and you have window tint as a keyword and your broad match or phrase match, they may actually present your ad. But if somebody's searching for window tint tools, that's not really somebody you want to spend money to put your ads in front of, because they're not looking to get their car tinted. They're looking to buy installation tools. So this balance of the net being wide, the keyword net being wide, but then maintaining it so you're constantly purging to get rid of the things that you don't want to go into the net, is kind of important. So, I mean, we could spend a whole half an hour just talking about keyword strategy and how to constantly do things with negative keywords and positive keywords. But I know that you probably want to get into some other things as well. We've got less than 10 minutes left, but as you can tell, one of the things people ask is like, once you set up AdWords, why do they still need maintained, if you will? And what we're doing week in and week out with AdWords is exactly what you're looking at me doing right now. You're going in, you're tweaking ads. Sometimes the ads certain phrases in the ad structure, things like that, won't be performing, and we'll just change around the order of the words or the type of words to see if we can increase the click-through rate and get the ads performing a little bit better. So all that being said, there's constantly like a garden weeding the things out that you don't want and, pushing the things that you do want. And that's why it's important to be in AdWords regularly to make these changes. You might be coming up from keywords like I just added 2 things to the negative keywords. You may be coming up for search terms that you don't even want to come up for, and you're spending money. If you're not monitoring that and removing those, you're spending money to come up for things that aren't even relevant to you. And you could be continuing to do that month after month, year after year, if you're not going in there and saying, whoa, I shouldn't be coming up for that. Let me throw that in the negative keyword so I don't ever spend money on that again.
Yeah. No, I think for anybody who hasn't dived into marketing, whether they're doing this themselves and trying to figure it out, at least as I was watching you kind of go through that, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, if I forget which one that you had just put as a negative keyword, kind of along the veins of kind of a DIY, the DPF cleaner, or doing it themselves at home. In my head, I'm almost thinking, when I initially saw it, was like, why wouldn't you want to put your product in front of somebody that would like, I don't want to do it at home. Maybe I'll just have them do it instead. But I also think you're trying to cultivate the most optimal, ideal customer through AdWords. So I think that's essentially what is trying to figure out and understand who your ideal customer is. Not somebody who's kind of waffling. You want somebody who's essentially going to like click and pay. And so that's, at least in my head, like that makes a little more sense too, as far as the customer.
Yeah, I think that you really have to, part of the, what you learn over time by managing AdWords. And, I like to think for us, because we manage a lot of people in the window film industry and things like that, you just start to learn over time, it's not black and white. When you're going in and looking at keywords, sometimes you're just using your judgment. You're making a judgment call maybe from past experience. You're making a judgment call based on knowledge of what the client is trying to achieve and things like that, to which keywords or which search terms you're going to leave in and which you're going to add to negative keywords, what new keywords you're going to add. Again, what the budget of the client is. If a client's got a very large budget, you might be able to cast a wider net because you're trying to bring in more people. And if you bring in more people, some of those might not be relevant searches, but you're just trying to bring in as many people as you can to try to maximize. Hold on. Excuse me.
Bless you.
You're trying to maximize the number of people that are potentially relevant. When somebody's got a tighter budget, you don't have money to waste. Not that you would ever want to waste money, but you don't have money to spare. So you really then are going to tighten up your strategy to say, I want every dollar that I spend to go towards searches that I know are relevant to what I'm trying to do. Because again, all kinds of things come into play. Like I said, the amount of the budget, the goals of the person. If the person's just like, hey, I don't have a big budget, but I want to come up for these. If people search for these 20 things, I want to make sure that I come up. Well, it may be totally appropriate to go with an exact match and make sure they're coming up really well for those 20 things, because they don't have a lot of budget to spare to come up for other things. But even in that situation, you want to be monitoring negative keywords. You want to be monitoring search terms. So,
yeah. And I don't know, if it's not going to show something that we shouldn't show, but one of the things that I liked when I was first utilizing Google AdWords was kind of that home dashboard page that would kind of give the optimization like recommendations. I don't know if this page even has any, but yeah, if you can kind of, this is the main page, and there might be at times, depending on how your campaign is going, whether it's just starting or kind of going along. Obviously, we've been working this one for a while, so there's probably not as many recommendations that it's saying, hey, this keyword or this, you should try the different tips and stuff that it
this
gives.
will tell you too, like this, the optimization score for this account is at 100%, which means right now they don't have any recommendations to implement for this account. But sometimes you might log in, even if it was at 100% a week ago, you may log in and this may be at 81%. And then you're going to go to this recommendations tab and look at what they're recommending. And some of those things you may want to implement, and some of those things you may not want to implement. You don't want to just assume if they're recommending it that it's appropriate for you. I've seen plenty of situations where somebody goes to auto recommend and they find out they're spending way more money than they intended and not getting the results because those recommendations weren't relevant to them. So again, it comes back to, you really have to, either spend some time to understand what's going on back here or work with a company that can help you through the process. Because in order to really maximize your return in Google AdWords, you need to spend time in this dashboard and really understand all the different ways. And again, I know we're right up against it as far as the half an hour, but we barely scratched the surface of all the different settings that are back here and all the different things that you could do. We haven't even talked about how to set up an ad. We've just talked about how to optimize a campaign that's already running. Yeah. This can be a little bit of a monster, but I think if you really understand it, here's my assertion. Even if you're paying a company to manage your AdWords, my recommendation was you at least understand this enough to where once a month, sit down with your agency and have them walk through this back screen with you and understand it enough to know whether you're getting good results or you're not. Are they BSing you or are they telling you the truth? You need to at least be invested enough to understand whether you're getting good results for the money you're paying or not, or you're getting good management for the money you're paying or not. If you don't, you're leaving yourself wide open to spend a lot of money and be like, I never got results, and you don't really understand why, and you end up firing your marketing agency. And the reality is you don't even really understand what happened and what they were doing, whatever. So my recommendation would be to, even if you're going to have somebody else do it, invest the time to understand enough about what's going on back here, and then ask them once a month or whatever to review this back page with you. And if you understand kind of what's going on back here, you'll be able to ask appropriate questions and be able to understand what's going on. So
yeah, the last thing I was going to ask as far as this goes, was there anything that you felt was super important on that main dashboard that people need to look at as whether they're just starting off? Like, what are some other key pieces that are there that they obviously, like, I know there was like the heat map and stuff, which kind of like the times and different, and understanding your demographics and stuff.
There's a couple different things. I mean, you can look at, this gives you the idea of what times of the day that a lot of the impressions are coming, and it tells you, you can see there's like no impression. So a lot of people will actually set up their ads to schedule to where their ads aren't even running in off hours. Or you could look at this, if your heat map is much more differentiated, and you may decide you really want to run your ads at certain times of the day. Maybe you only want to run your ads 4 hours of the day because that's where all the heat's coming from, is those ads. Essentially, this will tell you the gender and age of the people that are visiting, that are coming in, as far as that goes. This is the impressions. You could look at a lot of different things. The clicks, who's clicking on your ad. So this told me, just to give you an idea, the impressions were a little bit warmer on 35 to 44, but the clicks were a little bit warmer on 45 to 54. So maybe the people in that age group are a little bit more of the people that are buying, and these people are just kind of looking, and then you can see it fades off as they get older and as they get younger. This will tell you where the ads are firing. Like the majority of these ads are firing on Google search. And then there's some that are firing on Google search partners. So there's a lot of information back here that, again, once you start looking, again, I hate to continue to say it, but it's a tough thing to kind of dig into something like this on one of these half-an-hour episodes, because there's a lot back here. I mean, a lot of agencies will have somebody on their team that does nothing but manage AdWords. That's their job. Every day, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, manage AdWords. Their job is to understand the back end of AdWords and make sure that their agency is on top of knowing this platform better than anybody else, or at least at a very high level. So for us to, in a half an hour, sort of try to give you a crash course is very tough to do. But I think we covered a lot of ground on some of the things that you ought to at least be thinking about as you're talking to somebody. It gives you an idea about the different AdWords type and which one may or may not be appropriate to you. It gives you an idea about negative keywords, how they might be used. It gives you an idea about checking your search terms, finding out what your ads are showing up for, and weeding that garden, making sure you're removing those search terms that aren't relevant to you. So those things in and of themselves, if you just understand those things, your ads are already going to be headed in the right direction of performing better. But man, there's so much more back here to do. But again, it's going to be hard. However, here's the beautiful thing. Google has programs that you can take, modules you can take to learn AdWords, and it's all free. All you have to do is log in with your Google account, and you can take these you can watch these videos, take these tests, do these. You can learn this all for free. If you've got time to do that and you have motivation to do that, you can really dig into these platforms and learn them for free. Google makes all the information available at no cost to you. So don't spend a bunch of money to join some mastermind group on Google AdWords. You can do it for free. You just have to log into Google and you could do all this for free. I do think it makes sense that if you're going to spend your money on AdWords, you at least kind of understand the basics. If not, you're putting yourself at risk for somebody spending a lot of your money and you not understanding it and maybe being taken advantage of. I don't want to see that happen, whether you're working, obviously with us, we don't do that, but I don't want to see that happen to anybody that's working with somebody. So my advice is familiarize yourself with the back end of AdWords so that whether you're managing it yourself or you're having somebody manage it, you have an understanding of what's going on back there.
Yeah, absolutely. I was looking at the Facebook groups today and yesterday, just as far as kind of what they were talking about. And one of the things that kind of was mentioned was their advertising. And so I think it was one of the companies was about to fold, and it's like he wasn't doing the right advertising, or he just said it wasn't working for him. And so I think it falls in just like what you were saying, as far as if you don't have the understanding and you're trying to do it yourself and you just threw money at something and it didn't give you the results that you were hoping for, because I've seen that with like Facebook ads or pretty much any ads that you're trying to go in at, that you're just starting. I've got money. I just want to put it at something, but you're probably wasting a lot of that money. So making sure that you are, like you said, checking out those modules, watching YouTube videos as far as getting started, because if you don't have a Google AdWords account, we want to at least kind of give you that introduction that, hey, this isn't as scary as it might be. It's big and there is a lot, but you can break it down and be able to do it on your own, more or less. But I think it's, like you said, it's having that knowledge if you are working with somebody is key, because it's having more eyes looking at everything is better.
And if you're working with somebody and they're managing your Google AdWords, ask them to get on a Zoom call with you or whatever and do a screen share and walk you through the back end of your AdWords, how they set it up. Make sure that you're in alignment with how they set it up, that you guys are on the same page. Any reputable agency that you're working with ought to be happy to walk through that with you if you ask. I'm not saying you need to spend an inordinate amount of hours, but make sure you understand what's happening. And again, if they start telling you no, they don't do that, in my mind, that should be a red flag that you maybe would want to, consider. Because again, if somebody contacted me, and we do this for a lot of clients where we actually log in to AdWords, we do a Zoom call and we walk through what's happening. We adjust things, we look at things, we tweak things on that phone call. And again, if you're working with an agency and they're not willing to do that, that might be something that you consider as a red flag. By the way, I want to make one thing very clear on this video. Ronnie is not taller than me. We obviously have different height seats or something of that nature, because Ronnie is not taller than me, just so you're aware.
I'm sorry. I have my chair up a little too high.
No, I'm taller than you. So you can. I'm just saying.
Better.
I was feeling a little bit self-conscious. I was like, you were like, 6 inches taller than me there.
Sorry. Sitting. I'm taller than maybe sitting. But yeah. No, I appreciate you kind of going through this, especially since for me too, I'm no expert. I have definitely gone in and played around. So I definitely appreciate. We'll have to do more of these down the road, like you said, kind of set up and create an ad. We haven't really discussed next week's topic, but I will put you on the spot. This weekend, our next episode won't be until after next weekend. So do you have a Super Bowl prediction?
I'm sort of torn between who I want to win and who I think might win. So I'm just going to go with who I want to win. I don't really care for either team in the Super Bowl, but I'm going to go ahead and say who I'd like to see win is San Francisco, just because being a Cleveland Browns fan myself, I always like to see, Kansas City's kind of had their run. They've got their Super Bowls over the number of years. I know San Francisco has been in the Super Bowl in recent history as well, but I happen to be one that kind of pulls anytime I don't have a horse in the race. I find myself pulling for the team that maybe hasn't been there as recently. I feel like, Kansas City's had plenty of riches as of late and not so much at San Francisco. So I'm pulling for San Francisco. I don't think you could ever count Patrick Mahomes out. So it concerns me that that he's a variable that you can't. Again, I don't want to compare him to maybe one of the all-time greats of all sports, Michael Jordan, but I feel like there's certain athletes that have the ability to make a decision and elevate themselves and their team to accomplish things they might not have accomplished otherwise. And I kind of feel like Patrick Mahomes might be a little bit in that category.
Yeah. No, I'm the same. I've got Christian McCaffrey on my big money fantasy league, so I've always been a fan of his. So I'm the same boat. I think I'm not going to be outly rooting for anybody, but I feel like it'd be nice to kind of see the Niners win. But I think as my wife's T-shirt says, I just hope both teams have fun and that nobody gets hurt and that we all are okay. But no, I think I'd like to see the Niners win, but I've rooted for the Chiefs in the past too. So to me,
I think it's great. I rooted for the Chiefs in years past because they're a mid-market team similar to Cleveland, and I liked seeing them win. But they've had a couple wins now, so they've kind of got it. I was actually, once the Browns were knocked out, my next favorite was I was probably pulling for Detroit, just because Detroit has been a lot. So I tend to, not only am I not a bandwagon fan, I typically go to the other end of the spectrum and I'm rooting for the team that, that hasn't been there before and is trying to get there. And hopefully one day that team will be the Cleveland Browns. I'm rooting. I'm hoping.
Yeah, they can face the Vikings in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. So, but it should hopefully be a good game. If both teams play well, I don't think anybody's running away with this game at all.
Two good defenses. I think that's the thing. Powerful offenses, explosive, can do a lot, and then the defenses both have been at the top of their game this year. So I really hope
and
that
I
it's
may alienate some people with this comment, but I was rooting for Kansas City last week because the team that's in my division that I absolutely cannot in any way, shape, or form be okay with them going to the Super Bowl would be the Ravens. Because if you know a little bit of the history, the Ravens are actually the the Cleveland Browns that the owners moved out in the still of that Art Modell in the still of the night moved out of Cleveland to go to Baltimore. So now, the Steelers are our arch enemies, but so is Baltimore, because Baltimore is actually the old Cleveland Browns. So I was rooting for Kansas City last week because if there's going to be a team in the AFC North that's in the Super Bowl, it's got to be the Browns, or I'm rooting for against anybody else.
I totally get that. All right, we will sign off. We will see you guys next time.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thanks for that. Maybe we'll dig in. If you guys have some questions about this type of stuff, again, we could probably do a whole 30 minutes on just a piece of what we went over. So if there's something you've got questions about or you want some more clarification, let us know, because I kind of feel like we did a quick 5,000-foot flyover really fast and maybe missed a lot of things. So if you have any clarification or any questions, let us know. We could always jump back in, take part of a next episode or a future episode and address that. But again, this is one of those type of things that we could spend hours talking about it and still not touch on everything. It's just the nature of what it is.
Absolutely. All right. We'll see you, everybody.
All right. See you later. Take care, everybody.